Hop on with us as we dive into the latest topics, share some laughs, and bring you insightful conversations in and around the realm of ag. From down-home wisdom to cutting-edge tech, we've got what you need to fuel your curiosity. So tune in, relax, and let's kick back. On the Tailgate, presented by Wade Incorporated.
All right, welcome back to another episode on The Tailgate. Of course, I'm your host, Cade Moody. We've got my co-host, Gaston Line, and our producer, Mr. Riggs Ware over there, and a very special guest with us today, Mr. Bill Litton, former president and CEO of Wade Incorporated and current chairman of the board. So, Mr. Litton, thank you for making time for us today and coming to hang out on The Tailgate. So, look, Mr. Litton, kind of want to talk about the history of Wade Incorporated or Wade Hardware as far back as we can go today, and get your take on the historical events and kind of what made the company what it is today. We've had Wade on and talked a little bit about some of the high points, but really we feel like we can get more of the details and get into the weeds with it with you here today.
I think we kind of, when Wade was in here, we kept saying, Mr. Litton, he'll clear us up on that, you know. So we've referred to you multiple times in hopes that you can give us some good detail there.
Well, I can certainly try. Of course, I guess one of the things about being maturing, let me put it that way, is that at some point you become a historian, and so I guess they've made me somewhat the messenger for the history of Wade Incorporated. Of course, Wade Incorporated, as y'all well know, is we're finishing up our 115th year. I think it was in June of 1909 that the company was founded here in Greenwood. And it's got an interesting, I think a very interesting history, total history, but also an early history that I've researched through the minutes of our board meetings and stockholders meetings over the years. But when you look at it, any company that can be around for 100 plus years, I think that's pretty amazing. And Wade Incorporated is no exception. And I think it's really when you look at our early part of our company, you're going to agree that it is amazing that Wade Incorporated is still around today. When you think about the first 40 years of Wade Incorporated, so just say 40 plus years, you're talking from 1909 to right at 1950. And what you got to think about there is the period of time and what the early stockholders or founders kind of had to deal with. One, you're starting a new business, and Gaston, we're starting a new division, and you know just the challenges of starting something new. But when you start a whole new business, it's a lot of moving parts. And during that 40 years, when you think about it, one, Wade, and it started out to be Wade Hobbs Hardware in 1909, changed in 1913 to Wade Hardware. But you started a new business. And the challenges there. You had a World War I in the 1914 to 18,
soon after
15,
founding.
soon after founding.
Yeah.
And then you come around and there's a Great Depression that we've all heard of, and thankfully we didn't live through it, but thankfully we had some strong ancestors who did live through it. Mm-hmm. And then you come in with World War II. And then in that time, in the case of Wade Hardware, the founder of Wade Hardware died unexpectedly in 1932. So you had a whole lot of challenges there for a young company, but it started, as we said, in 1909 as Wade Hobbs Hardware and changed its name to Wade Hardware in 1913. Excuse me. The first few years, I would say the first 8 to 10 years of the company went along evidently pretty well. We actually opened a second location in Clarksdale, Mississippi in 1917. And again, as I mentioned, the things that were going on in the world then, but Wade Hardware did pretty good, building a foundation, made it through through that World War I time frame. And then came the 20s, and starting really in 24 to probably 48, 49, a 24, 25-year period that really, I think, defined the existence of Wade Incorporated today. And I think when you look at that same time period, though, it was a time that really defined this country and what all it went through. But anyway, it seems like, as we said, Wade Hardware was the business model was they were going to supply goods and services and mercantile to the citizens of Greenwood and the towns around Greenwood in LaFleur County. But also they were going to supply the commissaries on the big plantations and the crossroads of rural Mississippi with merchandise. And one of the products that Wade Hardware had carried from the very beginning was products made by the John Deere Plow Company, whether it be wagons, plows, mule-drawn, horse-drawn implements, things like that. They also did coals and cotton sacks and cotton chopping hoes and things like that. But the farming arena, or that market, developed into our biggest market. And of course, handling the John Deere Plow Company line, it was they were our biggest vendor, so to speak. Well, it seems like that in 1924, Wade Hardware could not pay their indebtedness to their largest supplier, and that's not good. We refer to it as on the 10th of the month we have an asterisk total on our statement, and you better be able to make that asterisk total. But anyway, we couldn't make that asterisk total back in 1924, so John Deere Plow Company evidently saw some good in this little company down in the Mississippi Delta. And they said, if y'all will give us $100,000 worth of preferred Wade Incorporated stock, we'll forgive $100,000 worth of your debt. Wow. Well, really, it was an offer that we couldn't refuse, as you've heard that saying, it's an offer you can't refuse. But it showed confidence they had in a pretty young company, but it was a lifeline for Wade Hardware. And the deal was that we would pay them a 7% dividend every year, and any time we could retire some of the stock, we would retire that stock. Well, the years, it kind of went on, and sometimes we were able to pay the dividend, sometimes we weren't able to pay the dividend. But in 1932, the founder of the company, G.A. Wade, passed away unexpectedly. And so they had a new president elected to the board, and Mr. Ball, who was elected to the board. And then at that same time in 1932, G.K. Wade, who was my father-in-law, he dropped out of Ole Miss and came back and started working for the company. So that was 1932. We were still struggling to pay John Deere and what have you. John Deere Plow Company, said in their deal they had to put a member on our board of directors, which they did. And that in 1932, that member became the vice president, and he actually presided over the meeting to elect a new president to replace Mr. G.A. Wade. And Mr. George Wade came back and started working, dropped out of Ole Miss, came back and started working. Well, in 1938, still was struggling paying John Deere the dividends and retiring the stock. So in 1938, we actually had to deed to John Deere Plow Company our facility in Clarksdale, Mississippi. and then we rented it back from them. So we were still struggling through the 30s and what have you. Then in 1946, the war was ending. G.K. Wade came back from the war, started working for the company, and in 1946 we were able to pay John Deere off, retire all of the stock from John Deere in 1946. In 1948, we were able to buy the building back in Clarksdale. So there we were in 1948. George K. Wade came back, started working back for the company. And you know you have to think about he was a member of that great generation. And what you think about what they sacrificed, what they went through, and so what they do, that generation, men and women, they came back and they just buried themselves into the family and the country, communities, Lions Clubs, Kiwanis, Knights of Columbus, and they just buried themselves and worked and just really, really worked hard. And Mr. Wade was one of those types, and we have so much we owe that generation so much.
Yeah,
but anyway, that work ethic and dedication that they had, he brought that back, and became president of the company when he got back, and it was in 1951 when he actually became president. But in '49, prior to that, right after he got back, the John Deere dealer in Greenwood, Wade Hardware, the John Deere dealer in Cleveland, West Implement, the John Deere dealer in Greenville, Farmer's Tractor, and then the John Deere dealer in Belzona went together and formed a John Deere equipment company in Indianola, Mississippi. That was in '49. In 1950, Mr. Wade bought the other ones out. And so in 1950, already it's 49, we bought the rest of them out, excuse me. And in 1949, that was where we got our third location. So at the end of 1939, we had locations in Greenwood, in Clarksdale, and then and now in Indianola.
At that point, had it transitioned more to like John Deere was at that point the primary function of Wade Incorporated?
Yes, they were. They had been that way for some time, really. But we still carried all of our hardware items too, and the commissaries were still very active in the '50s, really up into the '60s on most of the big plantations. And your little country mercantile stores were still out there, and we would call on them. And we called on about I don't know at the time, maybe a 7 or 8 county area. And there was a lot of rural Mississippi at that time was really a thriving place, as rural America is really, because all these veterans were coming back and they were working, and it was a lot of growth and pride and what have you going on.
That's what I was about to ask about. It had to be a lot of pride. What do you think the reason for everyone coming back from the war and saying, hey, we're about to put our heads down and be proud of what we do and bring on new industry and be part of these communities? I mean, I know it was tough, what they saw and did. What do you think they came back with?
Well, I think they came back with appreciation of what this country stood for.
Yeah.
And just how fortunate they were to be a part of it. And they said, hey, we're gonna make this the greatest country in the world. And I think they did.
I may be wrong here. Didn't Deere stop making Deere products and start making like ammunition or something for the war?
Well, they did have a division of Deere that manufactured war goods.
Yeah.
Whether it be ammunition, whether it be maybe some type of maybe part for light infantry stuff. I'm really not real sure on what they did during the war, but they did participate as most any company,
A lot of
manufacturing
industries did,
company. They made their tractors here, but they had a line over here that they were making other war products that did that.
Yeah, I was talking to my father-in-law the other day about a gun that he had just seen at somebody's house, and stamped on the barrel was a manufactured by such and such typewriter company.
Yeah.
And it was a war surplus gun that this typewriter company during wartime backed out of typewriters and got into, giving our front lines what they needed to give us the country that we now have and create that opportunity. So
it's something we hadn't really seen in our time, I would say. And very, very small, minute something is the COVID times where you started to see different companies do different things to help,
an all hands on deck approach.
Yeah, but we hadn't been exposed to something like that. I want to go back to the challenging times, and I think it speaks volumes, like you mentioned about John Deere stepping in and I wouldn't say bailing you out, but supporting you and finding out ways for Wade Hardware to continue on. Yeah. I guess what businesses weren't struggling during that time, and then how was John Deere not struggling to able to fund you and continue Wade Hardware on?
Yeah. Well, I think that Deere was a young company. Of course, they were, I think, founded in the mid-1800s, but they were a growing company also, and they saw an opportunity, I guess, to help a potential company that was in a very good, productive area for the products that they sold, and they wanted to. They wanted to participate and help them however they could, for sure. And Deere. I mean, what we want to do with our customers today, we want to be a strategic partner to them. I mean, that's our whole goal, is we want to help them do and be the best they can be. And I think Deere had that same mentality back then. They wanted to be a strategic partner to Wade Hardware. Probably there's some others out there but I don't know of any other. And John Deere's, and I've mentioned this to several of the John Deere executives, and none of them knew of any other company that they actually owned stock in that they were aware of. But they wanted to be our strategic partner, and they certainly showed that they wanted to be our strategic partner, just like we want to be the strategic partner to our customers, and just make them as successful as they can possibly be. If there's anything we can do, whether it's providing equipment, providing advice, providing support in any way, that's what we want to do, and that's what Deere wanted to do.
They were looking ahead.
Yeah.
They were looking way ahead.
I think it's extremely impressive that they saw something in the 20s in Wade Hardware too, and especially now what you just said, that you're not aware of another dealership that was offered the opportunity. Yeah, that's a testament to what was going on in the company at that time, obviously.
Exactly. Over the years, I think Deere has had what they call company stores. Very few, maybe a store that went out of business and they took it over for a while. And they used it a couple of ways. One was to train some of their personnel. But I think Deere found out then that they needed company owners and organizations out there that could mentor and work and build that relationship with the customer. And I think they found it was harder for them to build that direct relationship with the customer. And today, Deere assures us that the John Deere dealer is in their master plan forever. They're not planning on going direct or anything like that. They realize the importance of the relationship, what a dealer can bring to the farming community and their own community. Because, hey, listen, we try to be as involved in our communities as possible for several reasons. One of them is that we've got 300 employees in these communities that we're located in. These 300 employees have got to have a good quality of life. So naturally, if we can help our communities, we're going to help our communities, whichever way we can, because we're all in that together, in this together. So, and I think Deere realizes that.
Yeah, it's every piece of our families.
Yeah.
I mean, you got
absolutely
a dad, a grandfather, an uncle that's farmed,
Oh,
and then I mean you've got wives involved in it. Yeah, I mean it runs these communities, and I think it says a lot that Wade Incorporated and John Deere has been a part of it for a very long time.
Yeah, I didn't even grow up on a farm, but of course everybody had that John Deere piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Or that John Deere tractor, the little
Pedal
tractor, and
Those are worth so much now. If you could have kept them, and if I would have ramped it off the dirt pile and broke some things, it'd be worth something.
yeah, you know you were rough on toys when you tore one of those things up.
Yeah, some of those old ones are. You're exactly right. All worth some. They say they're worth some money, but you don't. Kids today don't want that pedal tractor. They want that battery powered.
That's right.
Tractor.
Which we got some good one of those too.
Some of those,
Yeah.
Some Gators.
Back to the early years and just starting up. You said that pretty early on, if not from the start, John Deere was your biggest vendor, I would say. But was that was that the plan? Was to start with them as the biggest one, and then kind of have all these other products and appliances, or whatever it was, or did it just happen that way? I think it's interesting. We mentioned just a little bit with Wade is that how the business starts and what all different types of things you're selling. You say after a year or 10 years or whatever, you figure out that this is the direction we need to go.
Something works better than the other.
Yeah. So what all did it start with? Yeah. And was John Deere invested, or was it your biggest vendor from the start?
Of course, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure that the model that the founders were looking at was a model to provide for the community, and certainly there was a segment out there, that farming segment, that was big, and they certainly wanted to include that in it. But I think at first Deere was I don't even know if they were 50% of the products that Wade Hardware carried. I do know that even in the 30s that Deere, they actually at one point had 2 members on our board of directors, and in the minutes it read that one of those Deere directors that were on our board, they made the recommendation that we drop all products except the John Deere line.
What a bold suggestion for them.
But it's funny. And one time we were in a meeting with one of the John Deere executives, and I've shared this history with them, but of course right now Deere's big deal is purity. In other words, when they say purity, they want to see a dealer that has just the John Deere line, and so they call that purity. And I told them, I said, hell, y'all been talking about purity since the 1930s. I said, that was the first time I'd ever heard of, dropping everything but the John Deere line. Of course, we are blessed to carry some other good lines. There's some gaps in John Deere's market. I mean, their equipment that we do find
portfolio,
elsewhere.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's some good products out there, and so I think they realize that. I think they realize that. But anytime they get a chance to mention that purity, they're gonna let you have it.
So when was the transition from more of farm tools and implements, whether it's mule drawn, horse drawn, whatnot, to tractors?
I think it was after World War II. There was a lot of, I'm sure, development made during the war years for machinery and what have you. But it was after that I think your engine powered, and the early ones were kerosene fueled, and then propane and gasoline. They'd have a carburetor on them, and it was in probably the early 50s that Deere really came out with a strong diesel engine.
Well, do you think the boom was because, and I'm not schooled up in this, but I hear it all the time that in today's world in military equipment and technology is so far advanced than what the everyday consumer has access to. And then, many years down the road, we will get something that the military's been using for a long time.
While, yeah.
So do you think that kind of same situation happened during those times where, the most technology advanced equipment, machinery was being used in the war? When it was over, everybody came home,
yeah.
and they said, "Hey, we were using this there. Let's try to master it here,
consumer
level."
I'm sure that played a part in it. No question about it, Gas. And it's and then too, it was proven in some pretty rough situations.
Right. Ain't that the truth?
On it, but I'm sure that helped speed up the development of farm equipment.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of farmers that are pretty innovative too,
Sure.
and they have a lot of good ideas, and we've actually, as y'all know, we've had farmers share those ideas with Deere. Or Deere will talk with our farmers sometime about, hey, how can we make this better? And because they know they're down there using it, and
Right.
So it's a partnership there that is very important.
Yeah.
We have those conversations weekly.
Yeah.
We'll get the emails from Deere like, hey, we got somebody running, one of these See and Spray sprayers. You mind if we talk to them and see what bugs we can fix or what's going on with it? And that's good to have that conversation all the way from the consumer all the way up into Deere. That's definitely how they get better. But back to what you were asking, Gaston, I feel like it goes back to Mr. Litton's point about these guys coming back from the war and they want to make the most of they got that new sense of appreciation. They want to make the most of the new opportunity.
Exactly.
And those same guys are working in the factory in Moline and building this equipment and it's not just the guys we got here in Mississippi. It's the guys that went back to the factory and they took that tank that they saw on the field. And like, I bet we can make this pull a plow.
And I'm sure it was the first time for them to see those kind of things.
Yeah.
News didn't travel very quickly, and so they go to the war and they're just blown away. Yeah. And then I think about some airplane stories that I've heard from Frank Kimmel over the years, and just how they trained some of these pilots in a T6.
Yeah.
And as soon as they were able to land that thing, they threw them into a Corsair that is like twice the size and seems like 10 times as strong, and it's just amazing, So they were just going out there and just figuring this stuff out, and then I think the boom kind of happened when they came home and figured out how we can get this distributed out to all the consumers out there.
Yeah, I'm sure it was extremely eye-opening across the board.
It was they had these, I don't know how many horsepower airplanes, and they put in these 21, 22-year-old young pilots in there that have a patriotic heart, and I mean they were in their heyday there, and it was really something for those, again, that great generation. Guys, I think a lot of that when they came back, if they immersed themselves in their country, their church, their family, their community, they got their mind off what they went through.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
And I think that had a lot to do with it. Again, as time goes on, I just pray that people don't forget the sacrifices that generation made. Not only just because they went over and fought, but just the sacrifices of getting this country up to a level that we were, and to give the opportunities to the farmers, to the younger generation to do. It's just mind-boggling to me.
I agree.
The sacrifices that were made.
No, read the books, watch the documentaries,
Oh,
try
yes.
to put yourself in those guys'
Exactly.
shoes, and it's
A lot of hard work in there.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
A lot of bodies. I mean, you don't. The technology is advanced now that doesn't require as much.
The
Boots
front
on the
lines,
ground.
it's
Yeah.
different.
So it's a whole different ball game that sometimes I would say in today's time it spares lives.
Yeah.
So it's just a whole different that you got to go back and understand and have an appreciation for where we are today, and that's as a country. And then now obviously we're trying to figure out a way to tie it into Wade hardware, and it's got a neat story.
Look, we made it to the 50s. I know we're going to do some follow-up episodes with your entry into the company and kind of what some of those years look like. Any final thoughts on what we've discussed so far, or any further you want to take it before we pick it up with the next one?
Where do we bring Miss Ann in? What year was that? Did we wait to the next episode, or
The year she caught my eye was I think I was in the 7th grade and she was in the 5th grade. So
and what? Yeah, okay.
that was yeah. No, I don't know if we're gonna bring her in.
We shouldn't have to be in here, but we've definitely got to. That's family's a big piece of this company,
It's
so we definitely have to include all the different ways you're intertwined, and
She is she's a matriarch now of the family, and she keeps us all straight. Believe me, all the way down to young Charlotte, the youngest granddaughter.
Yeah, that love story may be an episode of it in itself.
yeah.
We're certainly going to have to check that one.
If you want, we could just have her sit in the back and just make sure.
Give the thumbs up or thumbs down. That one's going to put Riggs to work there. He's going to have to do some serious editing, maybe.
Yeah. But no, I look forward to visiting again with you gentlemen, and it's the history of Wade Incorporated is something I'm proud of, proud to be a part of. Again, we have grown for several reasons. I think you can look at the leadership we had in the early years. You can look at the employees we've had over the years and the dedication that they've had. You can look at our farmer customers, and I can't think of maybe in my almost 50, well over 50 years, there hadn't been but one or two what I'd consider real rascals that challenged me the most. Just great people. I built some great relationships with most of our customers, and then we've got a really strategic partner in John Deere that have they're doing a good job in developing and seeing the future and the needs of us and our customers. So it's an exciting arena to be in. Yeah. It's a exciting time for me to be sitting back watching you youngsters carry this company to the next level. I'd like to think, and I think I've still got the passion, but Riggs, I don't have the energy. And when you get me on the pickleball court, you're gonna see that. You're gonna say that man's trying hard, but he just ain't got the energy. But no, it's we're real blessed with our company and the employees and the passion that they have.
Well, it's a fantastic company to work for.
It is.
And I know at least speaking for the ones at this table, we wake up every day enjoying coming to work, and a lot of what we've discussed today of the history of Wade Incorporated has created the company that it is. And these jobs, and
it's podcasts that we're starting up.
Exactly,
all the information that we hope to get out and people we're going to reach. I think it's a great base to start with this history and say where we're coming from. So we really appreciate you coming on, and giving us that. And
Definitely.
We've got it recorded now, so you may not have to.
As I start getting forgetful.
Well, not that, but we can help distribute it out, I guess.
But one thing, and I'll end this here today, but Mr. Wade, when he hired me back in 70, too. He just said this, it's a family company, and he said, but he said if you come and you don't get up in the morning and look forward to coming, and it's just a job to you, then you may want to find something else. But as he said, if you get up in the morning and it's a way of life for you, you go to the office and you enjoy it, then you've got a good thing there. And that's what I hope all of our employees of Wade Incorporated. If it's just a job, a paycheck, you got to say, hey, for your own good, you need to go find something you've got a passion in, and something when you get up in the morning, you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think y'all have done a fantastic job over the years creating that culture. Look, we spend too much time up here and with each other to not enjoy it, so might as well make something out of it. But well, look, Mr. Litton, appreciate your time again. Thank you for your down home wisdom as we mentioned in the intro in the history lesson. We really look forward to having you back to discuss maybe some of those other years.
There's a few more years out there we can discuss.
That's right.
I'll look forward to it, and thank y'all for the time this morning.
We've enjoyed
Yes,
it.
sir. Yep. Well, if you got questions, of course, you can reach us at On The Tailgate at wadeinc.com. You got a question for Mr. Litton. You got a memory, or maybe Wade Incorporated is a part of your family's history, let us know. If you got guests you want us to talk to, ideas, topics, please reach out. But if not, we will catch you next time on The Tailgate.